All right. So summertime is here. It's like right here. And the weather is nice. We get to wear our shorts. We get to wear our tank tops and stuff like that. We don't have to wear a winter jacket. We get to wear sandals. Well, sandals? Okay, so here's my ask. If you have gorilla feet, do not wear sandals. I was in Walmart and this woman's toe looked like it was ready to attack. Gorilla feet, do not wear sandals.
They say that America is divided politically, and we kind of agree. There's the dumb, and then there's us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that too harsh for the little snowflakes?
This is Right, Left, and Center. This is Right, Left, and Center. No matter what's going on in today's news, politics, social, environment, culture, we're talking about it unabashedly. Real, raw, direct, and funny. Let's rock. This is Right, Left, and Center. And this is your host, Will Jackson.
Let's get it, folks. We're back for another week of Left, Right, and Center. Boom, 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 boom. It's been a beautiful weekend, a beautiful week, except for a little rain here and there. But I don't know where you're located, but where I'm located, this week is going to be nothing but sunshine. And I'm going to enjoy it. So, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about woke. Because a lot of folks out there in the communities that are not part of the black or brown communities seem to want to get on TV and use it a lot, but don't understand it. And then we're going to talk about a little critical race theory. So if you have your children around, please have them have a seat and listen, because this is very important. Children need to understand what it is to be woke. I don't care what nationality you are. They need to understand what woke really is, because a lot of the politicians have it wrong. So we're going to educate them too. This is going to be a great show. So don't tune out. Please don't. And so let's dive into this, because here's the thing. As I look on TV and as I listen on radio or certain podcasts, or I read certain articles, there are people that are not part of the black or brown communities that want to use the word woke and don't understand the word woke and where it derives from. See, the meaning of woke for black and brown folks is a word of meaning that is of awareness. To be aware of strength in mind, to be aware. So, it's important that I get this message out, Because see, we got an election coming up, and you're going to hear the word woke constantly. And you're going to hear CRT constantly, which is critical race theory. So let's look at the first part of this cast. Now you'll hear me shuffling around because I want to make sure that facts are facts and make sure that we got it right. See, woke is an adjective derived from the Black American Vernacular, the English vernacular, meaning to be alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. Woke is a word which originated and referred to awareness about racism and discrimination. Florida, Texas, your governors got it wrong. There's a lot of politicians out there that are talking about this. They have it wrong. It later became to include an awareness of like social issues and inequality. For example, regarding gender and sexual orientation since the late 2010. It also been used as a general word for the left-wing politics or political movements and viewpoints, which, emphasize the identity of a political or politics of people of color, those who are not white, and people of different standings like the LGBT people and women. See, the phrase "stay woke" began within the everyday language of the African American, Black American in the early 30s. Because, see, in the Black American vernacular, woke is an instance of woken, the usual past I can never say that word. Past form of woke. Imagine that. So after the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2024, the word was used by Black Lives Matter, BLM, activists who wanted to raise awareness about police shootings of African or Black Americans in the U.S. It also became an internet meme and was increasingly utilized by individuals who were not of Black American heritage, but to show that they supported Black Lives Matter. It was popular among millennials. This word woke spread worldwide. In fact, in 2017, it was actually added to the Oxford English Dictionary. How did woke begin? See, there's a lot of people out there who actually really don't understand. And so I guarantee you, after this cast, you're going to have a better understanding of woke. Your children are going to understand woke. So when your children and when you hear someone use the word woke, you will know that they do not understand the true vernacular of that word, where it came from, how it and why it's being used. See, The word ended up being used as a catch-all term to describe the left-wing ideologies. I mean, it often centered around the identity of politics of minority groups and informed by academic movements like critical race theory, which we're going to talk about that, which identify themselves as being devoted to social justice. This include Black Lives Matter, anti-racism, and campaigns on women's and LGBT issues. By 2020, parts of the political right in the United States were ironically using the word woke to describe the left-wing movement's ideology they disagree with. So let's look at this. You disagree on the safety of black and brown folk. You disagree that the treatment of black and brown folks should be ignored. I mean, stay ignored. You don't want to agree that it's not okay to beat a black or brown person. Let's see, the list can go on and on. The list can go on and on. So when someone says, I disagree with woke, do they really understand what it means? There was actually, I'm going to I'm going to be a little ahead of myself here. Let me just say this. The first time many people heard the word woke in its current context was likely because of the birth of Black Lives Matter. I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement really just brought it back. This is not the first time woke has been used, so I'm going to demonstrate that. But Black Lives Matter, in their right mindset and their due diligence of research and understanding how to use a word, especially this word, revitalize this word. Because see, in 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri, black citizens took to the streets nightly to protest the police shooting and death of Michael Brown. As they did so, they urged each other to stay woke against police actions and other threats. We'll dive a little bit more into this woke right after this.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center.
Right, left, and center.
News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. Left, right, and center. Your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
I'm telling you, if you got crow's feet and I see you out in public, I'm going to talk about you in your face. There is no way and no reason for anybody to come outside with the toenails hanging like they ready to just climb a tree. All right, let's get back into this here. So the earliest known example of wokeness as a concept revolved around the idea of black consciousness waking up to a new reality of activist framework. And this dates back to the early 20th century. In 1923, a collection of scholars had ideas by really driving home the word woke, such as Marcus Garvey. See, Marcus Garvey really said it to include the summons, "Wake up Ethiopia. Wake up Africa." As a call to global black citizens to become more socially and politically conscious. A few years later, actually the phrase woke turned up as a part of a spoken afterword in a 1933 or actually 1938 song, the Scottsboro Boys. This was an actual protest song by a blues musician known by the name of Lead Belly. This song describes the 1931 saga of a group of 9 black teenagers in Scottsboro, Arkansas, who was accused of raping 2 white women. 2 white women. Yes. Here, let's listen to this song.
I think the Scottsboro Boys, and tell something about how you came to make up that song. And you know the Scottsboro Boys, don't you? Haven't you met them? Tell who they were and what their case was and how you met them.
Yes, ma'am, miss. I'll tell you all about the Scottsboro Boys because we had a sale once. When the Scottsboro Boys folks got out from down that hard world, that Alabama's a hard world down there. And the Scottsboro Boys had a long time, 6 years that time, them 4 boys what got out. And I met them, and the boys had such a hard time, and I've been through down in that hard world, but I didn't stay long. And when I saw the Scottsboro Boys, I shook their hand, I began to thinking about, and hear what I said about the Scottsboro Boys, because I know they had a hard time. And here the advice I give Joe Lewis, and this is the advice I give to all the Harlem colored people, and what I mean all the good colored people. Go ahead and beat it out. Alabama, and you better watch out. The landlord will get you gonna jump and shout. Scottsboro boys, they can tell you what it's all about. Cause them landlords, if they get you, boy, they gonna hang you. Go to Alabama, and you better watch out. The landlord will get you gonna jump and shout. Scottsboro boys, tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna talk to Joe Lewis and send to listen to me. Don't he never try to make nobody in Alabama read. Go to Alabama, and you better watch out. The landlord will get you gonna jump and shout. Scottsboro boys, tell you what it's all about. Go to Alabama, and you better watch out. The landlord will get you gonna jump and shout. Scottsboro boys, tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna tell all the colored people they've been on Sugar Hill. Don't you never go to Alabama to try to live. Go to Alabama, and you better watch out. watch out. The landlord thinks you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, yeah, what it's all about. Put your down and you better watch out. The landlord thinks you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, yeah, what it's all about. Beat it out. Do it again, didn't understand you. You better watch out. Landlord, you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, tell what it's all about. I'm gonna tell all the colored people, even in Harlem swing. Don't you never go to Alabama to try to sing. Go to Alabama and you better watch out. Landlord, you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, tell what it's all about. Go to Alabama and you better watch out. Landlord, you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, tell what it's all about. Beat it out. Do it again. Go to Alabama and you better watch out. Landlord, you're gonna jump and shout. Gospel boys, tell what it's all about.
Judy, what did the Scottsboro boys do anyway to get in all this trouble?
Well, they was down there and they supposed to have been riding on a freight train. And they riding in the boxcar and they run up on some white women. They had on pants and they was riding too. All was supposed to have been beaten away up to coming this way. And so down in Alabama, I guess the train stopped in the yard down there somewhere. Well, and some of them found all the boys and girls in the same boxcar. Some was different cars. And so I guess it's some of the people down there, they just said, well, you see them boys now with them white women. That was the trouble about it. Then they went out and made some loud cry about the boys being there with the women, you see. That is all it was to it. They just saw the women. They didn't see nothing else wrong. But anyhow, they put the boys in jail, and it's in that 6 long years. Well, the state, all the whole United States got together, and they got out 4 of them, and they come to New York. And the lawyer what got him out, I know him pretty good. I've met him. And he showed me the Scottsboro boys, and I shake hands with him, so I made this little song about down there. So I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center.
Right, left, and center.
News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
So there you have it. There you have it. That is woke. So when you listen to folks and children, listen to me and listen closely. When you hear the word woke, here is the definition of it when it relates to our cultures. All it is saying that we're looking for justice. We're looking to be treated the same, equal standing on equal ground. It means to judge by the content of the character, not the color of their skin. It means to be watchful, that if you are driving down the street and a white officer pulls you over, you need to be conscious of your environment and do as you're told. See, this is what the definition of the woke mean. It means to go against discriminatory acts by people who are not of the brown and black communities. I encourage all you parents to make sure that you educate and you nurture these young folks so that they can become productive, positive citizens and will accept everyone. And I mean will accept everyone of their character, not because of their skin. Children, there are people out there that are wrong. They do wrong. Okay? Those individuals do not magnify those who do good, no matter what the nationality is. What it is that we have to make sure that we understand, that you understand. Be vigilant. Stay woke. Be vigilant and stay woke. Now, if you have any questions or anything like that, make sure you ask your parents. It's not the teacher's responsibility. It's not the neighbor woman's responsibility. It is your parents, your grandparents. It's their responsibility. Take advantage of that. Okay? So, let's move forward. And so, children, you can kind of step away. There won't be any profanity, but I guarantee you, children, you can step away for a minute and get some milk and cookies. And if you step outside and you see someone out there with sandals with gorilla feet, just laugh. Don't point, just laugh. No, seriously. We're going to dive into critical race theory. So many, and I touched on this many episodes ago on CRT, and I think it's very important that I bring it back to light because, see, here's the thing. So there are folks out there that are using this in the wrong context and using this in the wrong meaning. They're actually saying that critical race theory ties in with the replacement theory, which is putting an uproar in a lot of the radical groups out there. The thing is that critical race theory is how can I put this? It's a cross disciplinary examination by social and, let's say, civil rights scholars and activists of how laws and social and political movements and media shape or actually I should say shaped by the media. Social concept of race and ethnicity. The word critical is in the name of a academic reference to critical thinking, critical theory, and let's say scholatorial criticism, rather than criticizing or blaming people. So what critical race theory on the surface is the focus of having a critical thought and using that critical thought or thinking pattern to come to a theory, to derive to a conclusion. That's, if I can say it that way. That's critical race theory. CRT is also used in psychology to explain social and political and legal structures and power distribution as a lens or focusing on the concept of race and experiences of racism. For example, CRT, or I can say the CRT conceptual framework, examines the racial bias in laws and legal institutions, such as a highly desperate rates of incarceration among racial groups in the United States. I mean, there was a time where, believe it or not, that and today, the incarceration of a number of black men black men is still higher than any other race. Here's another fact, and I touched on this in previous episodes, if you remember. There are people right now that are incarcerated for the use of marijuana, not crack cocaine, not selling crack cocaine, not selling marijuana, not selling or using opioids, just personal use of marijuana. Some of them are doing 10 years. Some of them are doing, depending on what state, southern states, very harsh on black men. They have a history in the South to be harsh on black men. And now I'm not the guy, but I'm just speaking fact. The thing is this. There are people still incarcerated that hasn't been pardoned by President Biden for the use of marijuana. And oh, by the way, some of them are incarcerated in states where the use of marijuana for municipal use is legal. And these folks are still incarcerated. Black folk is still incarcerated. I'll let you chew on that for a second. You got to forgive me. I'm kind of fighting a sinus thing here. So, but that is the framework of that. When you look at the legal institutions, you have to think. When you look at social, you got to think. When you look political, you got to think. See, CRT is intersectionally the way in which forms of inequality and identity are affected by interconnections of race, class, gender, and disability. Scholars of the CRT view the race and social construct with no biological basis. One tenet of CRT is that racism and desperate radical outcomes are the result of a complex changing and often subtitled social and institutional dynamic or dynamics, rather than the explicit international prejudice of an individual. CRT scholars argue that the social and legal construction of race advances the interests of white people at the expense of people of color. and that the liberal notion of the U.S. laws neutral plays a significant role in maintaining racial unjust social order, where formerly colorblind laws continue to have racially discriminatory outcomes. Did I say anything? I said something about the legal use of marijuana in states where there are a lot of black men that are still incarcerated. Have you chewed on that one yet? Oh my goodness. I chewed on it a little bit. And it's nasty. More after this.
You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
See, CRT is not anything dealing with replacement theory, which we'll do a show on that. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, all it is really just looking at how society treats one race better than they treat another. And we have to be very critical in that thought process and how we deal with what comes up. I mean, we're asked all the time to really take a fundamental step back and critically think about what's in front of us and theorize and then come up with a solution. I mean, that's essentially what it is, right? See, CRT began in the United States in the post-civil rights era. That was what, 1960s? As a 1960 landmark civil rights law were being eroded at schools where it was like being resegregated. Like schools were just being resegregated. You know, it's like, I'm not, you got somebody over here saying, I'm not doing this, but it's being done. You know, the old magic trick. With the racial inequalities persisting after the civil rights legislation and colorblind laws were enacted, CRT scholars in the 1970s and the 1980s actually began working and expanding critical legal studies, better known as CLS, critical legal study theories on class economic structure and the law to examine the role of the U.S. law in perpetrating racism. See, critical race theory is a framework of analysis grounded in the critical theory, originating in mid-1970s and writing of several legal scholars, American scholars, which actually included Derek Bell, Alan Friedman, and many others. Frederick Douglass actually was a part of, in the past, really starting and understanding, getting people to understand the critical race theory, the CRT. So this is nothing new. You know, like W.E.D. Du Bois. I mean, these folks actually did this. focusing on understanding this. And see, the academic critics of CRT argue on the basis of storytelling and studying instead of evidence and reason. I mean, they are today rejecting or rejects the truth and merit and oppose liberalism. That's not good. Since 2020, conservative U.S. lawmakers have sought to ban and restrict the instructions of CRT education in primary and secondary schools. Hello, Florida, as well as relevant training inside federal agencies. Advocates of such bans argue that CRT is false, anti-American, villainizes white people, and promote. Let me stop. All right, so these opponents, like Ron DeSantis and a lot of these type governors, are worried that and upset that this villainizes white people and it promotes leftism, radical leftism, and indoctrinates children. See, advocates of bans on the CRT have been accused of misrepresenting its tenets, and they continue to do so. And having the goal of broadly silence the discussion on racism, equality, social justice, and the history of race. People like the governor of Florida, Texas, and any other governor out there, they don't want any of the children to understand what it is that ancestral white folk has done to brown and black people. No one's trying to villainize anybody. And no one's trying to indoctrinate anybody. What's going on is this. The truth hurts. I talked about that in the previous episode. The truth hurts. And so this is why I've asked you folks to have your children present during this cast, because they need to understand and need to know the social impact. See, you have your social wars going on. We'll talk about that in another episode. But you got your social wars going on. And throughout this whole deal, there is no accuracy in what's being said by people that are not of the brown and black communities. If you don't believe me, just take 5 seconds and listen to somebody on TV, radio, or in public. See, the tide is changing. And it's almost like it's a rewind of the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. Heck, I'll even add the 60s. So, buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But as we go over the hills and valleys of all of this negativity and wrongful teachings and stereotypical lack of evidence of what is taking place, make sure your children are educated. Make sure your grandchildren are educated. Make sure they understand what this is, because they will be exposed to this. It's not something that you can hide children from. It's going to happen. And it's very important. Because, see, me as a grandfather, I've got grandchildren and I'm working on them. I'm explaining to them. You know, I had one of my granddaughters say, Papa, I asked him, well, I went to visit and I said, well, how was school and everything? She was like, everything is good. And I said, okay. But I do have a question to ask you. And I said, what's that, baby? She said, well, Papa, a white kid said to me, she didn't like me because I was black. And that hurt my feelings. I looked at her and I said, well, baby, I said, let Papa explain to you why she feels that way. And I explained to her, throwing in a little bit of the critical race theory and explaining that on a lower level and the wokeness of the situation and how she was woke to it and on a lower level so she understood it. And then she looked at me and she said, so, Papa, I shouldn't hate her? I said, no. You to love her. And you love the ones that don't know how to love themselves. More after this.
Have you been looking for a podcast that takes you beyond the headlines? A show that challenges you. A show that's real, raw, and unapologetic. Then you've found your new home. Right, left, and center.
Right, left, and center.
News, the environment, immigration, politics, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. Join Will Jackson every week, your personal guide to understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it. Listen everywhere podcasts are available. You're listening to Left, Right, and Center, your audio guide to help you understand the week's news, the world, and how America shapes it.
Now, back to your host, Will Jackson.
Bum, 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 boom. All right, folks, have your children leave the room. I'll give you 5 seconds. Have them leave the room. All right, that's 5 seconds. All right, so here's my final thoughts. Let me clear my throat. All right, so here's my final thoughts. What we have going on today is no surprise. We've got book bannings. We've got discrimination within the ranks of the federal government, the local, state government, and the local government. You see what happened in Tennessee. You see what happened. I think that was Montana or Nebraska, either one. I don't know. Or can't remember, I should say. And you listen to, and then you see a former president with no morals who commit and has committed adultery. And then you have the Southern evangelical pastors still endorsing him or following him, I guess, if that's true. And if it is, they're sick. And you see where they are. My whole deal is this, folks. No matter what your nationality is, you need to stay woke. No matter what your nationality is, you need to be a critical thinker understand your environment and your audience, theorize on what's going to come out your mouth before you let it fall out of your mouth. That's my message. And my other message is this, and I'm very serious about this. Make sure, if you're wearing sandals, you don't have gorilla feet. Until next week, knuckleheads.
You've been listening to Right, Left, and Center. Our passion is to talk about today's news, politics, the environment, culture, and anything else that helps shape the news in America. Our 2022 season was so strong, we had to come back and smack 2023 right in the mouth. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And continue to listen on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or anywhere you download your podcasts. See you next time on Right, Left, and Center.